Shroud recently played SCUM, the survival game by Gamepires. Now, if you don't know what SCUM is, real quick, basically the player plays a character who has been convicted by a mega corporation, and the mega corporation has thrown him into this open air, a free roam prison. Uh, a friend of mine at work compared it to Australia, but in that free roam prison, you're expected or encouraged to kill other players so that you provide good content for the game show that everybody watches. So it's a lot like Hunger Games in that respect, and when you start out playing, you may find it that your character is often hungry. So it's a lot like Hunger Games in that respect, except that in Hunger Games, the people were hungry before they even went to the games. I think they actually got to eat when they went to the games. But anyway, so but it's also got a very in-depth survival aspect to it. Now, not all of its systems are like fully fleshed out because it's an early access game. It's only now in version 0.7, and it seems to take about a year for the game to go up a tenth of a point. So I don't know. It could be 3 years before we see version 1.0, which is a little disappointing. But what's nice is that with many of the updates, they add lots of really cool content and features to the game. So it keeps you on the edge of your seat. But there are some major things about the game that I think could be easily remedied that the developers don't seem to want to put too much effort into immediately. It's almost like they're laying the groundwork with preparatory programming leading to major overhauls that are going to greatly improve the game. But meanwhile, the community kind of suffers with some glaring voids in the gameplay. And one of those, in my opinion, is the lack of NPCs, AI NPCs with ranged attacks, like Deadside, for primarily low population servers, of which there are many in this game. There are like so many servers that have 0 players on them because everybody wants to create a server because the server settings are so tweakable that you can really create the sort of gaming experience that you want in SCUM. And everybody's got their own opinions about the permutations of how you might set those settings, that it results in a pretty darn splintered community. But there are servers that are a lot more popular than others, and lots of players wind up gravitating to those if they're not playing on an official server. Anyway, so that's one of the PvE things, glaring voids in the game. Now, you could say that mechs are NPCs with ranged attacks, and that only happens in like military POIs usually, and you can't easily fight back against a mech. So I call them like literally aimbots on God mode, you know. You can destroy them, but you need an awful lot of firepower to do it, and you'll use up so much firepower trying to kill a mech that the rewards of getting past the mech will never outweigh what you spend in order to kill the mech. They're supposed to address that in the future, like you might be able to hack a mech in the future, or you might be able to get items from a mech when you kill it, blah blah blah. Anyway, I like to play with mechs disabled because they're aimbots on God mode. Now, one of Shroud's complaints was he just wants to play first-person perspective. He's aware of the advanced third-person system in SCUM that where if your character's eyes don't have direct line of sight on something, but you're using third-person perspective, you will not see the players, and I'm not sure, maybe the puppets and animals too, because your eyes don't have direct line of sight in first person, so you won't see them in third person. Anyway, so he asks, are there any servers that are first person perspective only? Yes, there are. Personally, I agree with him, and I would have a first person perspective only server myself, which I do have a server, and I'll put the details, if you want to try it out, because I'm all for realism. I tweak the game in order to make it more realistic, and because there are some very gamey aspects to vanilla SCUM. Anyway, I would have a first-person perspective only server, but it alienates players, and I personally find that driving vehicles off-road is a lot easier in third person. So, or just driving in general on like some of the roads is a lot easier in third person. So for operating vehicles, I like third person. For for everything else, I do like first person. However, if you're doing some parkour type stuff, third person can be really helpful for that, so you don't fall to your death. Also, I think that there are some advantages to doing melee in third person with the game's current mechanics, but I'm not an expert on that. So yeah, it's not a big deal. You can find first-person perspective-only servers, but I guess his question was, are there any good ones? I don't know. It took me a long time just to find a good battle royale server for SCUM, which there is one. It's like only battle royale 24/7 or something like that, and it was a pretty neat experience. It was. I would really like to see someone like Shroud or Danik D or Dr. Disrespect play on that server and give it a try. I'd love to see Danik D just try vanilla SCUM, but one of the problems of SCUM, and this is why they have events in SCUM, which is something that Shroud was blasting as an unnecessary part of the game. One of the reasons that they have events in SCUM, I think, as a band-aid for typical survival-based SCUM gameplay, is that the world being so expansive, and that helps to make it like less monotonous and boring, because if you've ever played Deadside, you know how quickly you can get super accustomed to the locations in Deadside. But in SCUM, there could be locations where even though you play like every day, you may not have even been to that location in like a year or so. So what happens is you can play for a day or two at a time and never run into another player, especially if you avoid player contact. You almost have to go looking for it PvP, and even then it's not guaranteed because there might be one or two players in the area because they're spread out all over like I don't know if it's like a 15 by 15 kilometer map. It might be bigger than that now. So these events are a way for a player to get an action fix, because what you'll find is that unless it's a very high loot server, it can be very difficult, at least before they added outposts and traders. It could be very difficult to piece together your favorite weapon system. Maybe not as difficult as DayZ, but yeah, pretty damn difficult. Like you could, I think, I may have played at least a year, maybe two, before I even got to where I could, piece together a nice weapon system, because I was playing kind of stealth survival and avoiding human contact, and the PvP that I engaged in that just happened by chance. It didn't yield much in the way of results. Like I opened fired on a guy with a Beretta pistol, like with a full mag, and the guy just went running off. He may have bled out somewhere, but he didn't die anywhere near me. So that was one of my first PvP experiences in the game. But so these events are really kind of a band-aid, in my opinion, to provide the PvP that the game is supposed to have but doesn't, because players are so spread out. Now, I think what may increase the chances of PvP are the recently added outposts, which add traders to the game. However, there are 4 different outposts, so then that splits up the number of players on the server into 4 different locations, even if they're all gravitating to an outpost. You may have only 10 players gravitating to an outpost, and they're not going to do that all at the same time. So you might get, 2 or 3 players maybe going to the same outpost at the same time. Personally, I think it would have been better if they had 2, maybe 3 outposts, probably more like 2, and then had each outpost represent a faction, so that you could have like a north versus south faction or an east versus west faction. And this is one thing about SCUM that I think is that it would be one of the most amazing tactical first-person shooters to ever exist because of the mechanics it has at its disposal. If they added a tactical first-person shooter option of gameplay, like I think like Battle Royale should be an option in the main menu. Regular survival should be an option, and tactical first-person shooter, like squad-based shooter, should be another option. And one of the reasons is that I think this is because one thing you can do is you can cache weapons and ammo in this game, hide them, and so you could set up weapon caches. And if you had like a moving front line, or you were carrying out operations against another faction, like say you had 40 players on on the server, and then you had two factions of about 20 players. You could be carrying out operations against the other faction, and then set up caches near their area of operations, and fill them with guns and ammo or explosives or whatever you needed in order to carry out those operations. So, and it just goes along with all of the other mechanics in the game, like blood loss, hunger, thirst, hyperthermia and hypothermia. Like the list goes on. Maybe less so like some of the skill-based gameplay, which is more like an RPG. But even that does kind of make a difference. Some players can have demolition skill, some can have engineering skill, some can have medical skill. So you can have your typical classes that you would have in a squad-based shooter. Anyway, this is going off on a tangent. He didn't really talk about that much, at least as far as I've watched into his gameplay in SCUM here. But one thing players are saying in the comments in his audience is, like, a lot of them are DayZ fanboys, and they think like DayZ is so much better. That is utter, total bullshit. I'm here to tell you, my name is in the credits of the very first Arma. I played Arma for 20 years, at least. Let's see, what is it now? It's 2022, and Operation Flashpoint Cold War Crisis came out in 2001. So yeah, over 20 years I've played Arma. Arma and DayZ, I don't care what they say, DayZ Standalone or DayZ the mod. DayZ Standalone feels exactly like DayZ the mod. I don't care what anybody says. What I feel when I play DayZ are the same engine limitations that have been with the Arma franchise since the very beginning. Melee in Arma is a freaking afterthought. And they can sit there and say that Melee in this game is janky or whatever. No, Melee is smooth in this game compared to DayZ and Arma. Arma-based Melee is atrocious. It's an afterthought, and it feels like an afterthought. You had, like, Arma's one of the best full spectrum warfare combat sims ever. However, Melee in Arma, it's just not a thing, right? Like affixing a bayonet and then going after the enemy, diving into their trench and getting into some bayonet play with another player. That just doesn't happen in Arma. Maybe in the recent Vietnam add-on, which really for me revitalized the Arma experience, because they added some gameplay there that just brought like new life to the Arma franchise. But okay, so Melee is an afterthought in Arma. It feels like an afterthought in DayZ. So you can't tell me and have me believe it, because I know better, that Melee is worse in SCUM. It's not. It's much better. Because it wasn't an afterthought in SCUM. In fact, SCUM's vision for Melee has been for a long time huge. Like, they're talking about having different martial arts styles in this game. Now, I haven't heard them talk about that for a while, but that shows that that was their vision early on for this game. So Melee was not an afterthought for this game. What was the other thing they're complaining? They're complaining about lag. Yes, SCUM. You do get desync. You do get lag as you get close to like 40 players on your typical server. Yes, that is a thing, and it sucks. So you have to restart the server probably like every 2 hours on a 40-player server. You know, if everybody's active. But something that might actually add to the lag and desync on a server are the events, because you've got everybody firing full auto. And that's kind of one of the weird things about the gameplay, is that everybody just fires on full auto, because like the full auto fire is so stable on these guns that you don't. And it might be that also you're defaulted to full auto on these guns, but you just don't want to switch to semi-auto that much when you're playing these PvP events. So what happens then is you've got bullet spam going on, and of course that's going to tax the server. Now on a low pop private server, you're probably not going to have a lot of events going on, so you're not going to have to worry about any lag or desync caused by events going on the server. But that can't be said to be the sole cause of lag and desync. In SCUM, probably one of the biggest causes of desync and lag in SCUM are the number of entities, or what should we call them, items in the world. Because when you examine like a piece of furniture, right, you reveal what items are in that piece of furniture, and then when you take the item out of that piece of furniture, now you've made it an entity in the world, right? And maybe you're carrying it in a container, or you drop it on the ground, and it's going to be there for about maybe half an hour, even after the player leaves the area. If another player enters the area, I believe that refreshes the lifespan of that item that's been left on the ground. So now it might last another 30 minutes, even if that second player moves out of the area. So you've got all these items all over this 15 kilometer by 15 kilometer, or whatever it is, world. And the server's having to keep track of all those. So you know, I guess it gets pretty taxing on the server. But and this is something where SCUM is better than DayZ in my opinion, because I've tried DayZ, and to me it just feels like an Arma mod. And DayZ and even Bohemia Interactive has said that they're going to try to remedy this. It might have been due to my recent comments about it when I tried out DayZ. But to me, DayZ, just like Arma, feels like a dead world. It's a dead world, and my character feels like a dead character. You know, he's just some bonehead running around with a weapon. You know, he doesn't feel like he's alive. In SCUM, your character feels like he's alive. In SCUM, more than any other game I've played, I am afraid to get into encounters with other players because there's so much to lose. And in SCUM, when you lose, when you get taken down to the bottom, after you've been riding high, you know, depending on what you believe riding high to be, like, okay, maybe you got a bolt action 22 and you found a suppressor for it, and now it's got a scope, and you're just pegging, you know, puppets, aka zombies, in the head, you know, from 100, 200 meters, and you're just having the time of your life, and then bam, somebody kills you, and now, or something, someone or something kills you, and now you're taken down to the bottom, and you've got no loot, and you've got to start all over again. So for some players, that'll knock you out of the game for a couple of days. But if you've been playing Scum, it's probably pretty likely that you're so addicted to the game that you will be back in a couple of days. But it's a real punch to the gut that you just lost so much stuff. So a player of Scum has to get to where they enjoy the low end of the game as much as they enjoy riding high. If you don't, then you're going to have a hard time rebounding in Scum from a loss, because the losses are huge. Now, I've seen players in DayZ that accumulate a lot of stuff and then they lose it, and I can see where, yeah, it would probably be similar in DayZ, that you could lose a whole lot of stuff and then you have to start over, and it's a real letdown. But in Scum, your character has this biology to him, and you're constantly feeling the effects of the environment, and your avatar, if you want to call it that, your avatar's reaction to your environment. In colder areas, you're going to have to add more layers of clothing. In warmer areas, you're going to have to shed layers of clothing. Okay, now where are you going to put those layers of clothing? Do you have storage space for them, or are you just going to discard them and, leave them on the floor and abandon them? Well, you might need them later on once again, right? Eventually the sun's going to set, it's going to get cooler. Are you going to need those layers later on when it gets cooler or not? Now what is the other thing? So a lot of these complaints that people are having about Scum versus DayZ, a lot of that stuff is easily adjusted in the server settings. You can have more loot, you can have almost no loot, you can have tons of puppets, you can have almost no puppets, you can even have, I think, possibly 0 puppets, I think, if you want a strictly human versus human dead side type game. You can shrink the area of the map if you want to. I tried to set up a server that was based only around the big city in Scum. It didn't really catch on, because I think players don't want to pay the price for a full game and then be restricted from playing on the full playing field, So it's kind of difficult to get some of these special ideas that you have about what you want your server to be to catch on with other players. In fact, it's difficult just to get players for your server in Scum, because there are so many servers out there for Scum, and the player base is just extremely fragmented. Every now and then I'll go and play on an official server, just to get a reminder of what it's like to play on a high population server, or to see whether I still have what it takes to play DayZ, not DayZ, but vanilla Scum. And so sometimes I'll do that, but I'm partial to my own server, because there are certain ways I think the game should be, and I work to make that vision happen on my server. Now, what was something else he was talking about? Okay, graphics wise, Scum blows DayZ out of the water. There are views that you can get in Scum, and they're just jaw-dropping, and the lighting is so magnificent sometimes that you really feel like you're in the great outdoors. DayZ, to me, it just looks like Arma. I just see kind of Arma's kind of crappy graphics that, you know, there was a time when I felt the same way about Arma, that there were just these magnificent views, but those graphics are kind of dated. And I'm not a graphics whore, but like SCUM's graphics are just so incredible that I don't really want to go anywhere else. And I've been impressed by the graphics of some other games like Skyrim or mods for Elder Scrolls and etc. But I haven't seen anything that looks like SCUM, during its best moments. And so, reason some people may be turned off by the graphics is that SCUM is basically set in Croatia, right? So you're dealing with Croatian architecture and Croatian city planning, and the furnishings in SCUM are like Croatian furnishings, so they're not the beautiful, pristine dwellings that you find in, what's it called, Super People, I think, where it's like everything is like ridiculously perfect, and you just kind of feel bad about your own living space, compared to whoever these fictional people are that are living in Super People, But anyway, so if you like DayZ, you really should give SCUM a try. I know that Bohemia Interactive is working to make DayZ better, but DayZ is just shit compared to SCUM. That's just all there is to it, man. I tried DayZ. I paid the exorbitant amount of money for DayZ, which there's like no fucking reason I should be spending that much money for standalone DayZ when I already own Arma and so many damn expansions, because it's just a fucking Arma mod, seriously. But I paid the price. I thought, well, let's see, maybe it'll be all right. No, it wasn't. It was garbage. The world is dead. The character is dead. The gameplay didn't impress me, man. It didn't impress me. SCUM, for me, has been crack for like 2.5 years, and I'm not even satisfied by Arma anymore, even as a full spectrum warfare tactical sim, because to me, my character in Arma has no identity. He's nothing but a platform for a gun to shoot at another platform with a gun. Whereas my character in SCUM, I'm invested in him. He's a person. He's got skills that I can level up. So there's that, kind of like an RPG aspect. But at the same time, he can amass loot. He can alter the world around him. Maybe not to the extent as 7 Days to Die, where you can, where the world is more destructible, including like the terrain. You can actually dig through the terrain. So 7 Days to Die does have that for it. But I can build bases. I can build, basically bases. I can dwell in secret places that I find, which, I'm sure you can do that in DayZ. But there's more, much more to my character in SCUM, and it makes me value my character's life more. Yeah, I mean, even like DayZ, I mean, even those fucking shorts that they make the default characters wear. What is that shit? Who wears that shit, man? What is that? Who wears that shit? Seriously. In SCUM, you start out, with a prison inmate uniform, which everybody gets one, right? So it's a generic uniform. If you spawn up in the snow, okay, you get a little bit more cold weather gear. You get like a hoodie and a knit cap or something, but you're going to shed that quickly because it's bright orange and it just gives your location away, right? So you're not wearing this dumbass outfit for who knows how long. You're going to be ditching that shit, ASAP, unless you just like to attract attention. So I don't know. All these Shroud fanboys are talking shit about SCUM and lauding DayZ. DayZ is fucking crap compared to SCUM. They can say, "Oh, this looks janky," but look, most gamers are fucking retards. I'll just tell you that right off the bat, okay? Ever since Arma came out, I've listened to this like 75% of gamers being dumbasses and heard them talk about why, this feature shouldn't be in the game, why it's too much work for the devs, as if someone appointed them the fucking mouthpieces for the developers. And then the devs come along and they put that feature that I wanted in the game, and it works, and it's beautiful, and it's awesome, and the game is better because of it. Meanwhile, if they had listened to these fucking dumbasses, which constitute so much of the gamer population, then the game would have stayed in its dumbass state, right, instead of improved, and everybody would have, gone without, just because of the opinion of a dumbass. So, for 20 years and more, I've listened to these dumbass voices, and it's so fucking irritating. And some of these are the ones that are telling you that DayZ is so much better than SCUM. It isn't, man. It isn't. Try SCUM and give it an honest chance, and you tell me that it isn't better than DayZ. I defy you to do so.